What's up, everybody? CoKnowPro. Hope all is well. Coming at you with a cool little video here. So what we got going on is we got some interior plaster we're going to be installing on this new drywall we installed. And plaster, you can call it taping and mudding, installing mud. But after we installed all of this seismic mesh tape, we got it on all the seams. We apply it on all the vertical seams, horizontal seams. In the corners, like right here on this corner, we're tying into the existing lath and plaster wall. So I like to always put 2 rows of seismic mesh tape on there when we're tying into some existing lath and plaster like that. And if you see, we have there's yellow and white seismic mesh tape. I like to use the yellow stuff. And here we go. We're going to start mixing some joint compound. Now this actually comes pre-mixed in a 5-gallon bucket, but I like to add a little water to it. And when you add a little water to it, it makes it a little easier to mix, because if not, after you start mixing for a couple hours, or actually applying the mud on the wall for a couple hours and you don't mix it, it's really thick and it'll start hurting your hand, and you don't need to do that. You can thin it out just a little bit. It'll make it a lot easier to apply it on the wall. So I use a paddle mixer to mix it, which I just had, and these are some of my putty knives that I'm going to use for the application. I like to always have a 12-inch putty knife, which that is right there, and the previous one was a 6-inch putty knife. And I always have an array of different sizes, just in case I have areas underneath windows, around the sides of things. Cool. 6-inch, 12-inch are the main ones I normally use. I usually like to rock with the 12-inch. Typically, people would use the 6-inch first on everything, then the 12-inch. Sometimes I use just the 12-inch on everything. I have gloves there. I like to keep, always wear gloves when I'm doing stuff like this. So here we go. I add a little water. Now we're getting mixed up here. Mix it. You want to mix the top layer a little bit, and then you're going to dip your paddle bit down all the way into the bottom and pull up the thicker stuff and mix it up with the top, the thinner stuff. You don't want to add too much water. You just want to add a teeny bit of water at a time. So you don't want to. You can always add more water. You can never take water away from there. So once you have that pretty much to a good consistency, which it looks like we're about there right now, and see when I pull the paddle bit out, you see how it holds its form? That's still what you want. You don't want it to drop back in on itself, then it might be too runny. So once we have that mixed up and we're happy with the way it looks, we're gonna go ahead and put it in the pan and rock and roll and start throwing it on the wall. I call it throwing it on the wall, but it's applying plaster to all of the joint seams and all of the nail holes. But I like to put the lid back on the 5-gallon bucket, and by doing so, it allows the joint compound to stay moist and not dry up in your bucket while you're working. So we're going to start in the corners, and this we're tying into an existing. We have this new drywall here tied into an existing lath and plaster wall. So after we applied the mesh, we're now applying the plaster here, obviously. But what I like to do is put it in nice and thick in the edge there. And so you put some on your knife, you pack it in the corner, and then just bring it up and down a couple times, and that's going to push it into the corner. You can do it start from the bottom, work your way up to the top. It really doesn't matter. The mesh is in there, so that's going to really bite to your plaster, and that's why that fiber mesh tape is really good versus the paper drywall tape, because the paper tape doesn't allow the plaster to go through the paper. It sort of blocks it. So that's why I like using this mesh tape, because the plaster will go through the mesh, lock into the existing lath and plaster, and sort of fill all those joints and cavities with a nice layer of plaster, and then you're good. So see, as I'm going, I did the left side, now I do the right side. I'm filling those nail holes, and any nails that you see are a little high when you're applying the plaster, you can go back through and use your drill to screw it back in, or you can even tap it a little bit with the hammer, and that'll usually work. But this corner, we're going to apply a nice little thick coat of plaster on the corners. I always like to go thicker than thinner as far as my application on the plaster, because I can come back the next day and throw a thin coat of some topping or whatever, which you're going to see on this, and it'll really finish it off nicely. Nice little sanding, and you're good. So here we go, we're rocking. We're going to continue on these corners, and basically the way I'm doing this corner here is the way you do all of the ceiling joints, all your ceiling corners. you know, basically all the corners are done the same way. So now we have, this is you know, we're in the mid span of the wall here. And this is the next joint I have on my drywall with an electrical outlet right here. So as you can see, as I'm doing, I like to float the mud out right there. And I like to get it right up to the box and sort of pack it in around the box, but you don't want it to fill up the electrical box there. And you also want to make sure you keep the little screw holes clean, which I'm doing right there. You can come in the next day when it's hard and sort of cut it out with an electrical knife, but if you wipe it out with your hand right there, it's cool. But make sure your wires, your electrical's off in there, or you have everything sealed off good with wire nuts in there, and you're safe, which we do. So as you can see, I like to apply plaster on all my horizontal seams and all my vertical seams, and you'll see in a second all my screws. Here we go. So this is how I like to apply it on my screws. I like to get a lot of mud on there, throw it on the wall, and then just start going up and down, just like I'm doing right there. And once you start working with the product, you'll feel how easy it'll start coming once you get used to it, you know, and you'll develop your own little rhythm and of how you like to do it, and enjoy it. You know, I once I start doing this, I get into it. Turn the music up. I start throwing that plaster. I call it slanging that mud and plaster on the wall. Yeah, that's how we do it. All right, here it is. So we're just continuing. We're gonna do everything, all of the seams. Now this is the corner edge where we have you know, some corner beads. So what I like to do is make sure you have a lot of mud on there. But if you see that void right there, that's what we're gonna fill up with plaster. So you just want to build it up as much as you can from that edge all the way into your drywall. So I like to build it up with a thick amount of plaster. So like here, you'll see I'm applying a thick layer of plaster, and then I'll put my trowel, my knife, right to the edge of the corner bead, and then drag it up, and it'll fill in that void in the middle, and allow it to have a lot more, you know, smoother surface, and the reveal will be nice. Oh yeah, that's what we want. We want it to look smooth. We don't want to see drywall joints. We don't want to see a lot of imperfections in the walls. We want it to look as smooth as possible. So this is how I like to do it, and it always comes out great when I do it like this. So if you see here how I'm just putting the plaster up, filling it up, I'm not scared of the plaster. I'm not trying to put just a teeny bit with a little knife, and I'm using a big 12-inch knife, and I'm putting a generous amount of plaster on the wall in the seams, and then I'm just putting it on my edge there and dragging it down and up until I don't see my yellow mesh tape anymore. I don't really see the seam anymore, and it looks like it's a nice layer. Now this is my first layer of joint compound, and you'll see what we'll do next. But here we go. And then after, on the inside, you basically do this the same way I showed the other corner over there. And I like to just go ahead and pack the mud in there. I call it mud, but when I say that, I'm talking interior plaster, joint compound. And just put it all in there just like so, and then run your knife along the edge. Make sure you're not leaving too much product on your corner bead, so that way when you come back the next day, it's not too hard to clean for your next application of plaster. So here we go. I like to see how I was finished there, but then I build it up. I build it up. You just keep going, just build it up, and that's how it is with plaster. It's like an art, you know. You start working it, and you'll really develop a rhythm, and you'll get going, and you'll figure out your own little smooth methods. And hoping these tips I'm showing you all like and enjoy. It helps you. So after we have it all, that was one coat. This is the next day. It was all dried. Now this is the joint compound, all finished off and dried. And you can see it came out great. That's a transition right here where there was an existing wall that I furred out, and you can see on one of my existing videos, I talk about that on my previous video, how to install drywall. You can see where I had this section of the wall furred out, and then we had the existing construction where there was an addition added on, and the reveal, it was a little bit off, so the transition is a little bit not flush. So we're gonna have to float that out right there, and you're gonna see us do that in this clip here. And when I like to float things out, I like to use a smooth set product. You can get it at your local hardware store. And it's awesome. Smooth set comes in smooth set 5, smooth set 40, smooth set 20. I like 40 because it allows you to work it for at least 40 minutes. So I poured it into the bucket here, and then I added the water that I needed to, you can read the instructions on the product when you get it to make sure you add the right amount of water. So after we have that, we mix it with this paddle bit mixer, just like I'm doing as so. Always keep your tools clean, cleaning it out in the water. I like to always keep everything that I do clean. My bucket's clean, my tools clean. That way you have a, clean job, clean product on the wall. Yeah, and then go. So now here we go. We're applying the smooth set. Now the smooth set, what's cool about the smooth set is you apply it the same way as the joint compound. Like you put it on the same way as the joint compound, but the joint compound that we just put on in the first part of this section of this video, that stuff you only do about a 1/4 inch thick. So if you want to go thicker than that, and like this right here, we go some in some spots 3/8 thick to down to 0. And if you want to use a really hardcore plaster, nice and strong product, you want to get the smooth set product, and you mix it up, and it has a fast setting product in it, so it'll activate and harden quicker. So you can go really thick with it. You can go up to like an inch. You can float things out like an inch thickness. But see here, I'm applying this smooth set to all of the there's some existing cracks on the wall, holes. I mean, this stuff's amazing. It's like, it's a really good product, and you can float it out. So see how I'm doing here, I'm just basically applying it on the wall as thick as possible, and then pulling my trowel from right to left. I like to use the 12-inch. It leaves a lot less lines on the wall, and then that way I don't have that many lines on the wall as far as using it. When I mean lines, I mean leftover from the edges of your trowel, and you'll see when you start doing this what I mean. So here we go on the ceiling. I'm basically floating it out with a 12-inch, and I'm using this smooth set, and I'm putting it on pretty thick. If you look at my knife, I'm putting on at least an inch thickness every time, and then spreading it from right to left. And by doing that, it allows it to really put a nice thick product on all of the seams. You won't see any of the drywall tape. I've worked with a lot of people, and they've said, oh, you put too much plaster, you do this. And I say, all right, well, look at your wall when you're done, and you can see all the drywall seams, you can see the tape, you can see screw heads. And then when you look at mine when it's finished, then you can see, just nice smooth walls that look like existing lath and plastered walls, which is awesome. Especially when you're tied into existing lath and plastered structure, you want, everything to look cohesive and match. So here we are, rocking and rolling, just doing the same thing. This is called floating out. You apply it in the top, and then you bring it down. Apply it in the ceiling, float out all your seams. Right here, we're floating out the ceiling seam. You see that gap right there in the middle? That gap that's left over, that's what's left over after you apply just joint compound. So then I pack it full of this smooth set 40, and then I pull it all forward, pull it all forward, pull it all forward, just like that, and it fills in the voids. You want to make sure everything's flush. And you can even get like a straight edge, a level, a straight edge, any kind of straight edge tool, and put it up. Like I'm doing right here, I'm using my knife as a straight edge, and I'm looking to see the gaps in between and what voids I have and where I have to fill up. You see that? There's a void right there. I can see the light coming through, so I need to apply at least a 1/4 inch plaster there. So, and right there, if you look up to the top, I could see a gap in there. I got to apply a nice layer of plaster there. So that's what we're going to do, and I have a couple bags on standby so I can mix up more as I need to go, and we're going to get rocking on this. So in a moment here, it's going to be just me floating out the walls, and we'll have some music playing in the background. But hopefully you all enjoy this and are getting the gist of how to float out plaster, install interior plaster, mud on some new drywall. And so I hope you like the video. Oh yeah, we'll keep making them. If you keep liking them, we'll keep making them. So here it is. I'm doing the same things like I did on the other corner, but this is the transition. And this is where one wall comes out a little bit, the reveal is a little bit stronger than the other wall, meaning that it comes into the room a little bit stronger than the other wall, set back a little bit. So the wall that's set back a little bit, I'll pack on a lot of plaster, and then the right side I'll float onto it. So that way it all looks flesh and reveal. And I'll do that all the way down to the ground. I'll do that seam all the way down to the ground. And by doing that, it's going to basically make, when I come back the next day, I can lightly sand it, and then I can apply some topping, some TNT, which is some tape and topping material, or you can even just do some lightweight, ultra lightweight topping, and you fill in all the other voids that you see there. You see all the plaster, the drywall where it's still gray looking? You can fill all those voids in. You see that gouge I just got in the plaster? That gouge right there, that came from a little chunk of dry plaster that was from yesterday's work. And sometimes that happens. You just got to make sure you clean your plaster off, your tool off, and then keep it rocking. Float everything out, just like I'm doing there. And you see that? So I put a bunch on the right side of the seam, I put a bunch on the left side of the seam, and I'm all just basically bringing it all together and dragging it all down onto the seam. And then it's going to allow me to float those seams out, and you'll really not be able to see them once you're done. At least that's the goal. Yeah. Alright, so here we go. Alright, enjoy. Cool. So here we go, some corner bead action. So what we have here is I took my 12-inch trowel and I took it and I'm scraping the edge off of the stuff that was left over from my application of the joint compound the day before. And so what I'm doing is I'm bringing it up and down and sliding on that edge, and that'll knock off any little imperfections that were left on the corner bead. And so now I'm going to go ahead and start applying this Smooth Set 40. And this is going to do, basically this is going to do the same thing that I did with the joint compound. We're just building it out. You see that gap right there? That's what we want to do. Just fill that void in. Continue to fill the void in, so that you'll see on the edge of the corner bead and on the right, it stays constant, but that inside gap needs to get filled up to reach the reveal as the corner bead, and then it needs to be floated out to the left. So we don't want to see, you see that? It wants to be floated out to the left. You don't want to run your knife like that, sideways like that, because it'll follow the seam. You want to run it like this, up and down, with your knife on the right side of the corner bead and then on the left side against the wall. and then go up just like that. You fill your product on the knife just like that, and then bam, you see that? See how clean that looks? That's how you get a nice product right there, a nice corner. Make sure you have a lot of product on your blade. Put it against the corner bead there, and then you see how I just went sideways like that? I want to demonstrate, and you can see that little divot in the middle. It'll follow the wall, sort of. If the wall has any divots, when you pull it sideways, it'll follow it. You can put it on there sideways when you're just applying a bunch of plaster and just to build it up. But when you want to get it as smooth as you can, you want to go up and down with it. Yeah, there we go. Starting to look clean. That's how we do it. I hope you're all enjoying these videos. You know, I enjoy making them for you. It's good time for us, and we like it, and we just hope you all enjoy, and you know, checking them out, and you can learn a little something from watching our videos. There's a lot of other killer videos out there. You watch our videos, you watch their videos, and the next thing you know, you're on some another level stuff right there, and then you're doing your own thing, and it's awesome. You're feeling proud about yourself. That's killer. And if that's what you get out of these videos, then that's awesome. So here we go. We just keep floating it out. It's just like I did. We build up that plaster, and you want to push in tight on the right side, and then sort of let it be a little loose on your left side, and that'll sort of float in that edge right there. So if you feel like that edge is being left too thick when you're building it up, that's how you float that edge out right there. So after you get it looking like that, it'll start looking really clean. Clean that edge as best as possible while your plaster is still wet, and then go ahead and do the same steps that I did on the joint compound, which was on earlier in the video, with the smooth set. So it's a lot of repetitive stuff you do. The joint compound, you do the same thing, just building it up, filling in the seams. Then you're throwing in the smooth set 40. And this is to help you really sort of shape it and give it the shape that you want. Square everything off, fill in the voids really well, fill in the seams really well, and you can build it up thick with this stuff. This is the smooth set product, which is great. Now they have a smooth set 5, 20, 40, and 90. I recommend you use whatever you feel is comfortable. If you feel like you can rock a 20, cool. If you need it to dry up really quick, then a 20 is great for you, or even a 5 if you need it to dry up really fast and you're doing like a tiny little hole. Then the smooth set 5 minutes. When I say 5, 20, and 40, I'm talking minutes. It takes 5 minutes or 20 minutes or 40 minutes to dry. So if it takes you 5 minutes to mix it and you have smooth set 5, it might be dry by the time you're ready to put it on the wall. So be careful with this product. Really read the instructions well before you use it, and watch my video, and hopefully it gives you some knowledge on how to plaster drywall and some existing lath and plaster too. So see that we continue the same thing. We float out all the seams, and then we float out all the inside, all those areas that aren't white. We go over all the screws again with the smooth set 40, and then we'll let that dry for about 40 minutes, and then we'll go over all those inside, all those gray parts, which is the rest of the drywall that's raw, and we'll hit that with some topping. And after you apply topping to everything, all over everything you floated, and all of the walls, all of the gray spots, and all of the plaster you already applied, after you do that, you wait a day, then you lightly sand all of the walls, and then you hit it with a coat of primer. And then after a final inspection, if you like it, then you hit it with your final paint. And there it is, everybody. Hope you enjoy. CoKnowPro.